Hey crew, so here is the situation on today's podcast. So I used a new mic that I connected with Bluetooth, and basically the results are that I sound like I'm coming to you right from a 1970s car stereo. So while you can totally hear me, I just wanted to be upfront that there is, a clear difference between what I sound like and what Jocelynn sounds like, because she sounds fantastic and I not so much. So still really great stuff in this podcast. Jocelynn sells on Etsy and I'm really excited for you to learn more from her on that. But just wanted to let you know what was going on with the audio. There's also some technical Wi-Fi things happening. Just know that this is a new podcast and we're just going to keep getting better every day. So I hope you enjoyed this episode and thank you for listening. Hi, and welcome to Your Selling Podcast. I'm your host, Nikki Kirk, aka Your Selling Guide. I'm a small town girl who took a big risk and quit a steady corporate desk job to travel the US in an RV. Along the way, I started selling on Amazon, grew a 7-figure business, visited all the lower 48 states, bought a farm, and today I am still doing what I love to do, selling on Amazon while helping other sellers do it too. Each week, I will share Amazon tips and tricks and bring in guests to share their stories, expertise, and tips on the platforms that they use. Think of this as a sit down with your Amazon bestie where you can learn, ask, start, and grow your online selling business. Welcome to Your Selling Pod. Hey crew, and welcome back to another episode of Your Selling Podcast. I am really excited because as a guest today, we have Jocelynn Durkin, who sells on Etsy. Now, if you're a member of the YSG community, you probably already know Jocelynn because she is admin extraordinaire in all of my groups. She helps me run my life. But if you didn't know, in addition to selling on Amazon, she also sells on Etsy. Other than how much I love to buy stuff on Etsy, I don't know anything about what it's like to sell on it. So with that, I'm super excited to welcome Jocelynn to the podcast today.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good. So like I said, know nothing about selling on Etsy. I just know that I like to buy different things on Etsy. But how did you get involved with selling on Etsy? What was your background before and how'd you get into it?
So before I started selling on Etsy, my first experience with selling anything was actually Avon. I did that very briefly, mainly because I just wanted some fun money to source my expensive coffee habits. And the older ladies I worked with loved Avon, so I figured that would be pretty easy. Once I did Avon, I started selling with Unique, which is a makeup and skincare brand. I still sell with them, and that's now my fun money. After that, I started selling on Etsy. This was probably 4 years ago. I started selling custom theme park inspired ears and hats. That was really, really fun, but in that particular niche, it is very, very saturated. So sales slowed down very quickly. After that, I took about a 2-year break from selling on Etsy. And I randomly fell in love with crystals and decided to start my own crystal shop, which is what I sell on Etsy now.
Oh, nice. So you are originally from Hawaii, is that right?
Yes.
So did you get into Disney because the tourist, I know you used to work in a hotel, so you're into that touristy kind of thing. Was that how you got into the ears, or are you just a Disney lover?
So I've always been a Disney lover. I was actually born in Southern California, lived in Hawaii though. So I grew up as a little, from an infant going to Disney, had every single Disney movie you could think of. I still have them. So I've always been a huge Disney nerd. And custom ears started becoming a thing on YouTube. So I decided to try my hand at them and fell in love with it. I love just the customizing and being challenged creatively when people ask you for certain designs. And Etsy was the easiest and safest space to sell them until they started getting hit for the counterfeit claims and copyright claims.
Oh, no way. That's crazy.
Yeah, if you have to be very careful with wording because Disney is very protective. So if you have any character names or Disney, they will come after you legally.
Interesting. So it's kind of like Amazon that
Yes.
you have
Yeah,
to
you have
watch
to.
out for that stuff.
Yes. Yes, yes.
Okay, so then you got into crystals, and how does someone start on Etsy? Like you just open an account or
Yes. So if you have a buyer account, you can also open a shop, and that will be separate. So your shop will be separate from your buyer account, but your profiles will link, if that makes sense. So you can do it all with one login, or you can open a separate account to sell under.
so if you have if it's like your same personal, do you get a change, like make a store name and all that?
Yes. So it's a separate profile in the account.
Okay. And then is it still that Etsy is like it has to be handmade or supplies to make stuff? Because that's what was my understanding about it.
Yes. That's where it gets tricky with crystals. There is now a category for rocks and minerals where that's where I list most of my stuff under, or you can do it under home decor.
Okay, so you've got your shop open. Like, do you do any like kind of analysis of like what other people are selling or listing at, or like, and how did you figure out where to buy stuff? I got a lot of questions. So,
So as far as like product or market research, yes and no. I search shops mainly for price comparison and they're like descriptive words. But as far as like what I want to sell, no. I try to keep my shop very me so it does stand out from others. There are certain materials and certain shapes, like as far as crystal carvings, that I won't sell just because I personally do not want to. There are Etsy crystal shops that are specialized. So you will only find a specific mineral or a specific shape with them.
well, that's awesome. So, how do you go about, or how does someone go about, like finding a supplier for, without obviously giving away your suppliers? I'm not going to give away your secrets, but like, how did you go about figuring out sourcing it?
That's where it gets really tricky, especially with rocks and minerals and crystals. Most suppliers are from other countries. There are US suppliers, but you're paying US prices. So for wholesale, you want to not be afraid to look elsewhere. A great place to start are gem and mineral shows or your local rock hound groups that then have connections. Another way is through social media. I personally paid to find my supplier, and then you have to vet them yourself. Finding a supplier just because it worked for one seller doesn't mean it's going to work for you. You could have a completely different experience. And because you are dealing with international sales, you're using sites like PayPal to pay, it can it's not guaranteed. So just, a word of caution. It can get expensive to vet, but once you find your one supplier or your two suppliers, you build a relationship with them and it's really great.
Nice. So, do you ever like branch out to different suppliers, or you've got one that works for you and you're
For right now, I have my one. I have a couple that are on a list to eventually try, but right now I'm off of my apartment. I don't have warehouse space, so I'm very limited with space. And my fiance is like, okay, that's enough. So for now, I have one that I'm happy with.
So, how much did you have to start like your Etsy business? Like, was there like a set amount that you picked to start with? And are there different costs associated with starting an Etsy business?
So for this specific shop that I have now, my goal was to start with 200 listings. The more listings you have, the more Etsy will push and promote your shop or your listings when people search. So my goal was 200. Crystals, even at wholesale prices, are not cheap. So I probably have I'm nervous to say this because my fiance's in the other room, but I probably have about $8,000 invested in this business right now. As far as fees associated with Etsy, each listing is 20 cents. And they just increased their seller fees. So they do take a pretty good chunk of your profits, but they deal with everything. So it's not, it to me, it's worth it. Like same with Amazon, the fees are the fees. And you're paying for that audience, you're paying for the ease of, you don't have to find your customers and they advertise and everything is just built into the platform. So it makes it really easy.
So what kind of struggles do you have, or what might someone have if they're starting out their Etsy business?
My biggest struggle so far was had to do with shipping, especially if you want to ship internationally. With Etsy, you can ship all over the world, but you want to make sure that your pricing is right. So there's a lot of research with that because Etsy doesn't help you necessarily with how much things cost. And with Europe, they have a what's called a VAT fee or a VAT tax, VAT. Believes a seller you're responsible for that. I currently don't sell in Europe. I only ship to Australia and Canada as far as other countries go. But learning international shippings and keywords for your listings would probably be another struggle because you want to make sure that your listings are optimized when people are searching for them.
Do you use any kind of software to help you out at all with that stuff, or is that just all like you learned it yourself? Or
I personally don't use any software. That's where I dig into other people's listings and shops. Find what you want to sell and look at other people's listings. Because when you open a listing on Etsy, you can actually view the keywords that they have tagged. So the ones that show up closer to the top, as long as it doesn't say ad, because Etsy allows you to pay for ads and they will push your listings up even further. So as long as you're not looking at the ad listings, I look at the keywords that they have because obviously theirs popped up first. So their listings are going to be more optimized.
oh, that's smart. Like that's really smart. What about like, is it up to you if you offer returns, or is it no returns? Because like I sell on Poshmark here and there, and I actually kind of like it because there's no returns. Like if the thing is that you sold is what you sold, there's like no return. Is it similar on Etsy, or is it like up to each store what they want to do?
Yes. So it's very similar. You get to pick your return policy with the exception of international shipping. Europe requires a return. You have to accept returns if you ship to Europe. I just found that out. But as far as shipping to like US, Canada, Australia, you do not have to accept returns.
Do you accept returns?
I personally do not because of what I sell. A lot of times people will break them and try to return them. With crystals, it's very, I mean, same with Amazon. You do have to be cautious of people that try to scam you or get free product. And crystals are very delicate. So I personally do not, but I do offer if there was an issue with their order to reach out and I will, depending on the circumstances, I could issue a refund personally.
Okay, nice. I was gonna wonder if it makes a difference. I just know personally when I bought stuff on Etsy, I never really had any plans to return it. It's also, I know I bought some plant hangers like macrame or whatever that stuff's called, and it was cool because you can talk to the seller or the creator, right? So I was telling her how long I needed them for the window that I needed them. Do you get those kind of like requests, or is yours kind of like it is what it is?
I do actually, and I love the request. I have people will reach out for specific materials, shapes, or if it's like a gift, I do offer gift messages where I'll make a little card. My customers don't know that, but if they mark it as a gift, I make a card that goes in the gift. And I have a custom listing request because I have that relationship with my supplier. If I get a custom request, he will find it for me.
Oh, that's awesome. So I don't know if you ever have this, but I have it a lot where you have like that imposter syndrome where you kind of feel like, who am I to be doing this? Did you get that at any time, or do you have it while you're selling on Etsy?
100%. I still do. I've had my crystal shop for over a year now, and they're always finding new minerals. Mineral names are changing. And I appreciate when customers educate me, but I have had customers educate me. So I for sure have imposter syndrome, but for the most part, it's a very close-knit, awesome community. So it's done very respectfully, but yeah, I do have imposter syndrome where I don't feel qualified enough to sell them sometimes.
Yeah, I could totally relate to that. But the good thing is, and for everyone listening, is that you just did it anyways. Like you just gotta push through it and do what you want to do anyways, because everyone always feels like that, but we always feel like we're the only one who feels like that. So that's really cool that you just push through it and do it anyways, because it sounds like you're really enjoying it and you're growing a community within both what you're selling and then also with just being an Etsy seller. So that's awesome. What is a piece of advice that you have for someone who is thinking about starting or kind of wants to start Etsy? Like, where should they start, or any words of wisdom that you have for them?
Honestly, just do it. There are people searching Etsy for everything. If you have anything that you love to create, whether it be physical or digital, there's a customer out there for you, and I guarantee they're searching Etsy for it. So just start and make sure if you are selling things like crystals, just be responsible and educate yourself first so you're selling the correct thing.
Nice. And so it's also kind of interesting because you pivoted, right? You sold one thing and then you decided, so it's not like you're tied into any one thing. You can change your store at any time when your tastes or hobbies or what you're creating changes.
Yes, yes. And you can put your store on vacation mode. So if you do try one thing and don't like it, you can temporarily pause your store and completely revamp it. And you don't have to create a whole new account. You can do it all from that one account.
So if you had to pick just one best thing about selling on Etsy, what would it be?
Probably packaging. I love packing my orders. With Amazon, you can't be like cutesy with your packaging. It's very basic. But with Etsy, you really get to customize things. And I feel like that's why sellers love selling on there and people love buying from there. It's very personal. It almost feels like you're giving a gift.
One thing I wanted to ask earlier and I totally forgot. So are you getting sales? Like, is it kind of consistent or is it here and there? Do you care? Does it matter to you?
It ebbs and flows. The more consistent you are with posting, the more consistent you'll have sales. One, because you're adding new products, so there's more things for people to buy. And two, it shows Etsy that your shop is still active and they will push your shop even more. So I try to post 1 to 3 new listings a day. I try. I don't always do it, but it does help.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's not like a set it and forget it. You're kind of always updating.
For me, I am. With digital products, I believe it may be different because those are evergreen products. So you sort of just post those and people search for them and they're there. As far as crystals and handmade goods, people are constantly making them. So the newer your listings are, the bigger chances of people seeing them.
Oh, nice. That's interesting. Good to know. Because I was like posting. It's almost like social media where you can have to post like actively.
Yes. So speaking of social media and Etsy, they have a new app that just launched, and it does have a very social media feel where you can post videos almost like reels. And if you use that feature, Etsy boosts you even more. They're trying to push these new features in their new app. So if you do have an Etsy shop, utilize it.
What is one of the worst things, either about being an Etsy seller or just a business owner in general?
One of the hardest things is storing inventory for ease of access and taxes.
Yeah.
I think as business owners and overall, taxes are one of the hardest times of the year.
No, totally. I totally understand. That is why it took me 2 years, but I finally got an accountant because I was like, yeah, I'm done trying to figure this out.
Yeah, it's a lot, especially if you have multiple businesses.
So I hear that you have an Etsy guide for beginners who want to get interested. Can you tell me more about it and where people interested can check it out?
Yes, so I have created a guide that takes you step by step from starting an Etsy account to opening a shop and listing your first listings and everything in between. It is going to be listed at jocelyndurkin.gumroad.com.
Okay, awesome. I will definitely link that in the show notes so people can check it out. And where can people find you if they want to follow along on your journey on social media?
I am at Dancing Wolf Crystals on Instagram and Facebook.
Nice. And I'll make sure I also add all of this so people can find you. Well, thank you so much, Jocelynn, for hanging out and telling us more about Etsy. So if anyone out there listening or watching on YouTube is interested, definitely check it out, her guide, and she can help you start your business.
Thank you so much, Nikki.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Next week, I will be back with another episode of Your Selling Podcast. If you like these podcasts, don't forget to leave me a review wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. You can also check out the video of this podcast on YouTube at Your Selling Podcast. If you are a member of the YSG community, you would like to be a guest on the podcast, or you know someone who would make a great podcast guest, please have them email me or you email me at podcast@yoursellingguide.com. If you have any questions, you can actually send me an audio question on the Podcasts by Spotify app. They recently changed the name. It used to be Anchor app. But anyways, you can send me an audio clip question and I will answer it on an upcoming podcast. Thank you so much for listening in. Until next week, happy sourcing.